Coach, I'd be curious to hear more about those player development plans, what they entail, and sort of what vision they provide players.
I mentioned earlier, like in the NBA, I've been a part of a lot of different player development plans, and that was something we knew we wanted to do, and that's still evolving. But it's to kind of give us a baseline for our guys, like physically and on the court, and set goals for them. But it's pretty in depth. We pull in our sports science department, dietitian, and everything, and because it's the game's becoming more professional. And so, it's all the off the court things too, because it's hard to be successful on the court if you don't have the things in line off the court.
The two guys you've got here with you on this trip, James and Keanu, I mean, it seems pretty obvious they'll play big roles for you this year. Just from a leadership and a skills standpoint, what do both of those guys bring to this year's team?
James is, if not the oldest, one of the oldest guys on our team, and if you look back the last few years, the successful teams have been older teams, and he's had the experience playing other places, so that's something that'll help our other players and me as well. And Keanu, he's the one returning guy that he's kind of a Utah kid, and I think that helps as well. They're both big, but I'm excited for them because I think as they get better, again, they're both older than the rest of them. I think it's kind of they'll have a big part in laying the foundation for the culture of the program we want to have.
What kind of stood out when you're going through that recruitment process, particularly about James's game?
I think, the one thing, and I say it like all the time, and it seems like a simple thing, but like guys that like to play, that actually enjoy it, because, at the end of the day, it's still a game, and you got to have fun. And I think James, he was unselfish. I think the way he screened, and every team he's played on has been successful. So I think he has a feel for, what being successful in college has to do. But yeah, just the way, I think he was a guy, I always say this too, is a guy that you'd like to play with as a teammate.
Alex, I'd be curious just to kind of hear your thoughts on, going from an assistant coach in the NBA, kind of out of the spotlight to now, you're a head coach, you're here at Big 12 Media Days, cameras on you and all that. How have you handled all of this and the transition to this role at Utah?
Oh, yeah, I knew it was going to be a transition, and I was smart enough to realize that there was a learning curve, and I needed to change and grow and learn. The college game's a lot different than what I've done for 15 years, but my coaching journey's been great. I've been lucky to have coaches I've worked for and worked with have helped me. And I think often of my 2 years as a D-League head coach, which was great. Learned a lot, and there's a lot of similarities to the college game now. And again, I'm excited to learn more. Like this first year is going to be a lot of it, especially in this conference with the programs that are established here. But yeah, it's a continually evolving process, I would say.
Up there, Keanu was talking about, what kind of brought him back to Utah, and he brought up the PowerPoint, the player development plan. Just from your standpoint, what kind of about his game already would translate well over to the pro game, and what do you kind of see that would be things to work on?
I think, Katie, the size. First thing I think an NBA guy comes and looks at is just the size. Because that's the biggest difference between the NBA and most other leagues is the size and athleticism and length, and he has that. And the growth, I think, for KD is like just being aggressive. They played a clip earlier, and that's just things that he does in spurts, but trying to get him to be aggressive, come out of his personality, and not be afraid to make mistakes. Having an idea what I and the rest of my staff wants them to do in particular situations, so there's no hesitation, but to be aggressive, make mistakes of being aggressive.
Coach, along the lines of that transition from the pros to college, now with the prevalent player movement and the money involved, is the college game, is the skill set for a coach kind of more along the lines of a pro coach than maybe it was 10 years ago?
Yeah, I think, more so than 10 years ago, but I think that's going to continue to change too as well. But I think I truly believe there's a path forward, a way to do it where there's not a ton of change every year. There's going to be change, but I imagine that the NCAA there'll be more guardrails and rules, so that answers to a lot of questions people have right now. But I think there's a way to do it, because I don't want to coach 15 new guys every year. And I don't think that's good for a player either. But there's a way to build something and do it the right way and have some continuity along the way.
Alex, did you have much of a relationship with Kevin Young before getting the job? Did you know him? What's kind of been the extent of knowing him?
Yeah, no, Kevin and I coached against each other in the D-League. In fact, I think my first D-League game I lost to Kevin. And I've gotten to know Kevin in the D-League, and then obviously against each other as assistants in the NBA. And he's done a great job at BYU. And we've talked briefly on a few occasions about the transition, which it's different. A lot more practice time and things of that nature. But I've known Kevin for quite a few years now. And he's done a great job. Good coach.
Last week, the Big 12 poll came out. You guys are 13th in that. I guess just for this first season, what's kind of the benchmark you hope to kind of see out of your team this season?
It's a good question. The one thing, one of the things I was blessed with early by my college coach was if it had nothing to do with winning the next game, then you didn't talk about it or think about it. And no matter where we're picked in the poll, like, it's kind of the message I've tried to tell my guys, like, next play, next game, don't look back, don't look forward, and whether it's good or bad, just keep going. And I think if you do that, you'll find yourself in a place that you are happy to be.
Along those same lines, going back to last week, your exhibition against Nevada, just how beneficial is it to have a game like that where it doesn't count in the win-loss standings, but you now have a sense of what your team is, a better sense of what your team is? Just what did you gain from that exhibition?
It was great. Again, it's the first time the staff has coached a game together, the players have played together. You get a feel for each other. You kind of get an idea of what you need to do and where you need to go, rotations. And then the big thing for us is, with injuries, we kind of get a better feel of, combinations of rotations that we have and what we need to get better at it. Because, like I said, we're all learning together, and it's invaluable. I think it's good for the fans to come see too.
I guess speaking about injuries, do you have any more on Seidu's status after that game?
I know he's. I don't. I know he's. He has. Consulting with some doctors and trying to figure out the best way forward for him. Yeah, I know he'd love to play, but as I reminded him, it's like that's one instance where you got to think past next week.
I was going to ask about Don McHenry, and I know he didn't play last week, but what sort of presence and spark can he provide this team?
He's another one of the older guys, fifth-year senior, or I don't know, might be a sixth year, I don't know, but he has experience, and again, he's able to score, and and we've asked him to take kind of that leadership role on, and get us organized and create, and let the scoring come to you, because it's a different level in the Big 12. It's it's going to be hard to get things, so we're going to lean on him too as well.
When you were kind of building that roster, and you talk about having to go out and then just find guys from the portal and everywhere else because of the late start and everything, but how big of a priority was making sure you retained Keanu? Like, did you make him kind of as much of a stay here, as much of a go and find guys?
I'll give it to Keanu, because it's actually a good story, a longer one, but because I was still in Dallas, and I'll give him credit. I think he had a lot of trust. It's like, listen, like, I'm new, I'm getting a feel for it, and portal, as we all know, gets mad. Everybody's calling and throwing stuff, but credit to him. I think he really wanted to stay, and he gave us a chance, and we had some good conversations, and I think it, to this point, it's worked out well for him, and it in the future, it's going to be a good decision for him. All right. Thanks.
Cool.